All right, we are ready to go. Welcome to the monthly Sales All Hands meeting. I'm Andy Cotgreave, VP of Global Sales. Thanks to everybody here in the room and welcome to everybody on the WebEx. Whoever's eating breakfast on the WebEx, please mute yourself. We don't need that. Thank you. Right, here we go. The best slides and the best data. It's the monthly wrap-up. We have a sales update. We have the 2019 sales targets, and I'm going to do some dashboard training. Let's go, team. First of all, sales update. How did last month go? Well, you probably know, but here's the data. It looked bigger on my laptop, but you'll be okay. Well, what we can see clearly is the three teams did okay. What I can see very clearly and what you can see here is home office. You guys smashed it in October. Excellent month-on-month growth and excellent year-over-year growth, very clearly shown on the chart here. Way to go, home office team. Consumer team, what you can see is you guys did not do very well. Really bad October, very bad compared to next year. We're going to do some retraining in the next month to see that metric back on track. All right, but I know you're all very excited about the 2019 sales targets. You are the best sales team. I've been analyzing it and making some predictions for what we're going to do next year. Here's the analysis. And yeah, sorry, that one looked bigger on my laptop as well, but it's fine. What we're looking at here is sales growth, 2018 plus 2019 projected sales. And what you can clearly see is whatever region you are in, you have got a big growth target. So whether you have a big team or a small team, you can see the target you're going for next year. But you're the team who can do it. Let's smash it in 2019. And finally, new dashboard training. As you know, we've invested heavily in our dashboard application. Here it is. You probably all heard we had to cut the budget of the training team. We wish them well in their future endeavors. But that's fine. I'm the man with the clicker. I can present. I'm going to present the three changes. First of all, we've changed how this KPI works. Not this KPI, but this KPI. Base that from your guided analytics. Next thing we did is we've edited this chart. We've added a new category to this chart. Not this chart, but this chart. So that's going to be good for understanding whether you need to take action. And finally, we've edited the broken filter over here. That's this filter over here. When you do that, now when you use that filter correctly, now the correct reports will be added each month. We are going to be awesome using this dashboard. Now you have been so excellently trained. Well, that's it. That's the end of the meeting. Let's go 2019. As you know, it'll be the Sales All Hands Happy Hour tonight. Consumer team, you're not invited. Some retraining for you. But otherwise, it'll be a dance party, just as always. Thank you very much. All right, thank you. Hello, everybody. That was, well, hands up who's seen those mistakes made before. Yes. Hands up who's made those mistakes before. And yeah, I have. And hands up if you're so numb to that being the reality of every single meeting you ever go to, you just felt like you were back in the office. Some of you. Right. Terrible. Well, thank you to Cole Nussbaumer for the inspiration behind that sketch. This is an excellent book on this kind of topic, so go check that out. Now, this is Clear and Presentation Danger, Building Charts for a Big Screen. My name is Andy Cotgreave. I'm Technical Evangelist at Tableau. It's great to be here for the third year at Big Data London. Thank you all for coming to the session today. I wrote a book last year, The Big Book of Dashboards. We're going to be doing a signing at the Tableau stand right after this session, so come along and have a chat with me about this session and the book if you want to have a copy of the book. That would be awesome. But my goal today in the next 30 minutes is to stop everybody being bad Andy. And I have a real motivation for this. These charts that Bad Andy was presenting are based on real charts that I see in real meetings, shamefully in Tableau. Right? But I've seen this kind of thing for 20 years. And what I want everybody to leave here with today is this idea that as analysts or people leading a team of analysts, it is incumbent on us to get this last mile of data correct because you need to do this job correctly. It was encapsulated perfectly by Alberto Cari just last week in a tweet He said, if you are an analyst who still uses the tired cliche soft skill to describe written word, data presentations, and communication, then you clearly are demonstrating you don't understand that role. And I think that's a brilliant tweet. At Tableau, we have a very simple mission. We help people see and understand data. Now, at a conference like Big Data London, it's really important to think about enterprise-class analytics platforms like Tableau's that helps you store and clean and prepare and analyze and collaborate with data. But what we need to think about as analysts and trying to build data-driven cultures is that actually the human skills, the hard skills, the last mile, is about how you use that insight to drive change in your organization, to convince your CEO to make a decision, to communicate insight to your customers or to your team. So my motivation for doing a presentation about presentations at Big Data London is to help you think about that human aspect, which is absolutely vital to analytics, and essentially not do presentations like Bad Andy just did. So with that, I've got two key concepts before we start looking at how to build better presentations with data. First of all, what is a big screen? People seem to think that I'm doing a presentation, so I'm going to have a big screen. Well, this is a physically big screen, but it's not big for the person at the back of the room. Some people are lucky to do keynotes, but even a screen like this is not very big at the back of the room. But whether you do presentations or keynotes or just plug your laptop into a wall screen in a meeting room, that is a physically big screen, but it's not actually large enough for people at the back of the room to see it. So we need to stop thinking about these big screens actually being big, because they're not. Secondly, whenever we present data, we need to think about the kind of ways we present data on screens. First of all, Bad Andy was trying to show an information-dense dashboard application. What could he have done better? We'll have a look at that. Secondly, he was trying to use a chart to persuade or inform his team and maybe inspire them to sell better. He didn't do a good job. What could he have done differently? So with those two, we're going to focus on those two for the next 25 minutes. Let's fix some charts. I'll start off with dashboards. We'll just spend a few minutes on this. Many of you spend a lot of time developing rich, information-dense dashboard applications and then throw them on a screen and assume everybody knows what they mean. Well, for a start, they're not designed for a big screen. They are designed for laptops or even smartphones or tablets. So the translation needs to be dealt with. Secondly, your audience has no clue what they're looking at. You know, that has about 60 pieces of information on it, and it's very difficult for me, or it's almost impossible for you, sorry, to actually follow what it's saying. And so the trick is to draw attention to each area you need to discuss. Now, there's many different ways to do this, but essentially it's a lesson in how to point. And I'm just going to show 3 ways, but there's about 15 different ways we could do this. One of the things that drove me to build this content in this presentation is this. This is the KPI you want to look at, not this one, but this one and this one. There's only one person in this room who knows what I'm pointing at, and that's me. Possibly you over there might be able to see it. I'm the only one with a line between my eye, my finger, and the thing I'm pointing to. So when you see people doing this in presentations, it's like, well, they're looking like John Travolta, but they're not. I won't. But they're not actually showing you what I'm pointing at. So we could do three ways. You could physically point. Let me draw attention to this KPI. This is the one we fixed. The red dots indicate this, and these are the categories that are contributing to the problem. Right, that's good, but it comes with danger. Sometimes you physically block the thing you're pointing to. Also, you can't always guarantee you're going to be at a screen you can actually point to. Sometimes the screens are over there. And finally, unless you have a very projected voice, you end up mumbling and pointing like this, right? So that's not ideal. You can use clickers. Is anybody a fan of laser pointers? They kind of look cheesy. Yeah, you are. You are a fan of laser pointers. I think they look kind of cheesy. And if you've got in a 2-screen environment, I could laser point over there, but all you lot would be disappointed because you couldn't see what we were doing. If you do a lot of presenting, and I'm not sponsored by these guys, but this is a great piece of kit, the Logitech. It actually allows you to draw a physical spotlight on the screen and use the pointer to move it around. So you can draw attention. these are the KPIs, this is the chart we changed, etc., etc. But that costs money, which some people you might not have the budget to do that. My favorite way and my favorite recommendation of how to draw attention to an information-dense application in a presentation is to use shapes and callouts. Let me draw attention. This is the KPI we fixed. This will start your guided analytics. Next, these are the contributions to the underperforming KPI. The red dots indicate what you need to take action on. We fixed this chart. It is no longer showing erroneous data. And this is the filter we've added to allow your analysis to be more robust. I really like this approach because we are all short of time. And we often don't think about the script that we're going to talk about in enough detail. The good thing about animating these callouts is that they give you the prompts about the 4 things you're going to talk about without you having to write bullet points, which is death for any meeting. So that's how to point. Please go forth, and anytime you present something complicated, point well. Let's move on to persuasive charts, where we'll spend the next 19 minutes. And as a segue to that, I want to just bring in Hans Rosling, because he links back to how to point, but also how to show persuasive charts. Hans Rosling was a Swedish physician who unfortunately passed away last year, but he turned the world of data kind of upside down. He was a physician driven to use data to help people understand the health of the world in a much better way. And in 2006, he did an amazing TED presentation. Now, he turned up to the Tableau conferences to do some keynotes, and he had this brilliant thing. He turned up with a 3.5-meter long stick to point. That's great, but it's not very practical for most of you here in the room. So use the simple points I just talked about a moment ago. But I'm going to show you a couple of minutes of his first TED Talk from 2006. Some of you may have seen this before. I've seen it probably hundreds of times. But it's an amazing presentation of data. And as you watch it, whether it's for the first or 100th time, just consider how he explains the chart and how he points and how he's using the data to persuade and inform.
So this is what I could display here. I put fertility rate here, number of children per woman, 1, 2, 3, 4, up to about 8 children per woman. We have very good data since 1960 about, on the size of families in all countries. The error margin is narrow. Here I put life expectancy at birth, from 30 years in some countries up to about 70 years. And 1962, there was really a group of countries here that was industrialized countries, and they had small families and long lives. And these were the developing countries. They had large families and they had relatively short lives. Now, what has happened since 1962? We want to see the change. Are the students right? It's still 2 types of countries? Or have these developing countries got smaller families and they live here? Or have they got longer lives and live up there? Let's see. We stop the world. And this is all UN statistic that has been available. Here we go. Can you see there? It's China. They're moving against better health. They're improving there. All the green Latin American countries, they are moving towards smaller families. The yellow ones here are the Arabic countries, and they get larger families, but longer lives, but not larger families. The Africans are the green down here. They still remain here. This is India. Indonesia is moving on pretty fast. And in the 80s here, you have Bangladesh still among the African countries there. But now Bangladesh, it's a miracle that happens in the 80s. The imams start to promote family planning, and they move up into that corner. And in 90s, we have the terrible HIV epidemic that takes down the life expectancy of the African countries, and all the rest of the world moves up into the corner where we have long lives and small family, and we have a completely new world.
That's amazing, right? If you've seen that for the first time, hopefully that's blown you away like it did the first time I saw it. He was using circus performance tactics. He was a sword swallower. He actually knew how to perform. He was using lessons from sports commentators to bring drama and bring data to life. And that's incumbent on everybody in this room. We've got all this data. We have insights. And if you want to drive change, you have to try and be a bit like Hans. Now, that's quite hard, but it's great. It's really rewarding if you try and bring that drama to your performance. So we're going to take Hans' example and think about persuasive charts and how to inform people. But before we do, I want to address a myth that I hear a lot about how long charts should be on a screen for. So a chart, I think, a chart should be understandable in under half the time it is on the screen, which sounds like a vague cop-out, but it's actually a very specific reason I say that. Here's a scatter plot with about 150 dots on it. Generally, is that too complex for a presentation? Generally, people might say, yes, it is. It depends, but it seems pretty complicated. But that chart is actually life expectancy and fertility. It's the same data we just saw Hans Rosling bring to life in 2 minutes in a TED Talk from 12 years ago. The point being, you are allowed to show very complex charts on a screen, but if you only show them on screen for 2 or 3 seconds, then your audience have no clue, and they get no value out of what you're trying to present them. So if you're going to show something complicated, you need to devote the time to do it. Let's have a look at another example. If you've not seen this chart before, raise your hand. So, right, a lot of people not seen this chart before. Edward Tufte, who wrote a bunch of data of his books, said this was the best statistical chart ever written. And it was drawn in 1879 by Charles Minard, and it shows what happened when Napoleon invaded Russia in 1812 and basically underwent one of the most disastrous military campaigns of all time. Now, it would take me 3 minutes to do this chart justice. There's a video link at the bottom of the screen, which some of you can see. You can go watch that video. That's how I describe this chart. I'm going to just kind of ruin it very quickly, or not do it justice. Napoleon started here with 500,000 soldiers. He marched to Moscow, nobody to fight. Now it was cold, depths of winter, and he retreated back to the Russian border, and he got back with only 10,000 soldiers left. Like a military disaster. But this chart shows much more. There's much more going on in this chart, which I don't have time to explain. But I want to imagine the conversation that happened between Field Marshal Mikhail Kutuzov, who I'm sure you all know was the military commander in 1812 of Russia, and Emperor Alexander I, who was the emperor who looks suspiciously like Putin. But imagine the conversation that might have been happening on their ancient Android text interface phone. Well done, Mikhail, great job on the scorched earth policy. Well done. Mikhail replies saying, yeah, thanks very much. Do you fancy some vodkas later? Alex says, yeah, but do you want to do a summary PowerPoint presentation to the team about the campaign? Ooh, Mikhail feels a bit nervous. How long do I have in the meeting? Just 2 minutes. It's a busy agenda. Yikes. Does that sound like a real situation? You've got all this insight and you only get given a couple of minutes in front of the boss. Well, this is what Mikhail has to think about. Now, he's got all this data. Should he be using this chart? Well, this chart was not drawn until 1879, so probably not. But imagine he had the data and he had this chart. Well, it takes 3 minutes. He's only got 1 minute or 2 minutes. So he could do this instead. Hi, everybody. 1812, been a great year. Campaign success. The scorched earth policy was hugely successful. We killed or captured, 98% of Napoleon's army was killed or captured. Only 2% got out alive. If you want more details, please make an appointment with my department. Let's go and have some vodka. My point here is, when you are presenting your insight, both of these charts could be the right chart for your meeting and to share insight. But what I see all the time is people taking complex analysis and copying and pasting their brilliant analysis onto a screen, but then not giving the explanation of how long, not giving enough time to justify it. So think about distilling the message down to what you need to show. How do we do that? Well, the goal is to punch home the message. One thing you need to think about is fonts. Can they be read by everybody in the room? Can they read everything that you need them to read? So this is PowerPoint. These are the default fonts. You'd never put smaller letters than this on a PowerPoint slide, would you? Would you? Well, here's a common mistake. Here's my chart, copy, paste. I'm going to tell you about this. Hands up who can read the legend. Yeah, right, so at the front, you can read the legend. You lot have no idea. So you've got to think, which bits needs to be readable? You can't just make everything bigger, because then the data shrinks and everything gets a bit shouty. So you've got to think, well, what do I want the audience to see? And make that font readable from the back of the room. We've got to think about colors. too and be very sparse with our use of colors. And I'm now going to attempt a pop quiz, which I've never done in a room of more than 10 people, so I have no idea if this is going to work. I'm going to show you this side of chart, and then I'm going to show this side a different chart, and I want to see what conclusions you make about customer by day of week. So in order for this to work, everyone over here on the right side, you've got to close your eyes. Everyone close your eyes. Don't go to sleep. Right. Excellent. Nobody's cheating. Okay. So on the side with our eyes open, here is customers by day of the week. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's gone. Okay. Everybody else, welcome back. Now you lot, close your eyes, please. Here we go. I'm going to show you the same chart. Eyes closed over there. Eyes open over here. Customers by day of the week. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Everybody, welcome back. So, over here, what conclusions did you make from the data? Somebody at the front. Did you make any conclusions? Sorry? Weekends are different. Right. Who made a conclusion that weekends are different? Look at that. Most of you. Now, let's the test. Who made a conclusion that weekends are different? Fewer. Definitely fewer. Right? Still lots of you did. This was the two different charts I made. On the right-hand side, color is used arbitrarily because we get carried away with putting color on things because it's very easy. Whereas on the left-hand side, we used color to highlight a very particular part of the data. So fonts and color, really important. I'm going to look at two case studies. First of all, one that we used at a Tableau conference last year. PATH is an organization using Tableau to try and eradicate malaria from Zambia. And they had amazing data about a 93% reduction in cases. And we wanted to tell that story in the keynote. Here's the data we had. Nice chart. We can pretty it up with a bit of more punchy use of color, which is still accurate and informative. But we wanted to think, well, what was the key message? What did we want to hit people with as soon as the slide came on screen? And this is how we drew the slide in the end. You can use fonts to enormous sizes to punch people in the face with the message you're trying to tell them. Ladies and gentlemen, there was a 93% reduction in cases. And then as the narrator continued describing the chart, they could then get the secondary information from the chart as a result. So don't be afraid to kind of go out of your charting package and put big words in there if that's the message you need to convey after doing all your brilliant analysis with your amazing data. Final case study, Bad Andy's chart. This is not a bad chart, but it's only a good chart if you've done the analysis yourself. His message was to try and talk about sales growth. How long have I got? Right, I've got a few minutes. To talk about sales growth, right? Because that was his message. So what would we change? Well, here's the original. Well, what we could do is take one measure out. Just show the blue dots, which you probably can't see, but that's percentage growth. Turn those to bars, sort them, and then rotate them. Because then I can make this unreadable, blurry text bigger. And hopefully everybody at the back of the room can now see Belgium, Sweden, and Denmark. Maybe I need to make them even bigger. Then we can declutter these charts. Make it easier for your audience to see the data itself. Get rid of the headers, the lines. 77.23%. Nobody cares about 2 decimal points. Just round it. Get rid of the grid lines. Give it a title as well. I can guarantee there's somebody looking at a smartphone right now because we all drift in and out. Our attention drifts in and out. It's a reality of life. So put a title on there which conveys the message that I'm going to try and get across. Everything that has a 20% growth target, reference line, make the fonts bigger. And there we have what could be a better makeover. Oh, some of you might take issue with this. Some people might think, well, I want to see the sales numbers. Here's my final makeover. I've used color to tell you what the measures are. Orange is sales volume. In circles, because that's not the key part of my message. But blue is growth targets, and that's something you can accurately see. And you can see your own region if you need to. So I went from a good chart on the left, that's a great chart to make personally, to something, hopefully, that gets the message across that I'm trying to convey. That's persuasion. And I'll finish with a couple of general tips, which again drove the genesis of this talk. 2 tips. Generally, we are short of time, right? So a lot of you would love to do a lot more of these tips, but we sometimes have to rush our presentations. If you do only 2 things, please never copy and paste an image into a thing and let me see all that crappy PowerPoint background. Fill the slide. Because at least, if it's a non-optimized chart, at least give everybody in the room a chance of reading it. And finally, there's one thing on this. This is our Tableau corporate slide. I see a lot of this kind of slide internally. There's something on this that drives me crazy. And it's not the double title, although that's not great. It's the background image on the bottom, right? I tell this to our teams all the time. I also say, if you have a corporate template which has something at the bottom, don't paste an image over it, because to me it just looks sloppy and lazy. And it's really easy to fix this. You right-click, you format the background, and you hide the background image. That's it. That's done. You can do that in bulk, so you can make Andy cross, or you can make Andy happy. It's that easy. I'm that easily pleased. So if you do nothing else, just hide the background graphics, declutter things so that the data shines. Because that's what we're trying to do. So we only had half an hour together. If you want to find out more, go to my blog on gravyanecdote.com or send me a tweet on Cotgreave. Let me know whether you like this, whether you disagree, because I like disagreement, or let me know what you agreed with. I will be doing a book signing straight away at stand 247. We've got 20 copies away to give away today, another bunch tomorrow, I believe. But I'll leave you just with the summary. We are showing all kinds of data on screen. Dashboards, dense applications, persuasive charts. You've got to draw attention to the right part of the message at the time the audience needs to see it. And you've got to think, all that analysis I did, if people can't see what it says, if they can't get that visual punch to interpret your message as you say it, it's been wasted time. So this is the last mile of data. And please, as you leave, try not to be bad Andy and feel empowered to tell your colleagues when you see charts like this, because we're all making these mistakes. So why am I doing this at a big data conference? Because we have great analytics platforms, but it's the human skills that you need to think about as well to actually turn your data into data-driven cultural change. And with that, have a wonderful 2 days. Thank you very much.